and the feminist collective of Romani gender experts. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of several countries, as well as Ms. Rocio Arino Serrano, the Deputy Director for Equality of Treatment and Non-Discrimination at the Ministry of Equality in Spain, but also Professor Tomoya Obokata, UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery. And of course, a warm welcome to civil society colleagues. We are passing around a sign-up sheet, so please sign up if you want to stay in touch and connected with us and receive follow-up information. So let us begin. And we must begin by emphasizing the scale of the challenge. Discrimination based on work and descent, a UN terminology which shows the inherited social status of many communities. It's a phenomenon that affects over 270 million people globally, and this discrimination manifests, as I said, as social exclusion based on inherited status, practices of untouchability, and notions of purity and pollution. These communities include the Dalits from South Asia, Buraku from Japan, Roma communities across Europe, Latin America, and North America, but also Haratin, Osu, Fulani, and many such others across West and East Africa, as well as Quilombola and Palenque communities in Brazil and Latin America. Diaspora communities from CDWD are also affected by this form of discrimination, and those of you who have been attending the previous event in Room 3 have heard how caste-based discrimination crosses borders and affects the identity, the dignity, and the rights of Dalit communities worldwide. So today we are gathered here to explore how these forms of discrimination have been manifested, but also to show the contribution of our communities, which is an undeniable contribution. So these communities are not merely victims of systemic and intergenerational discrimination, but also we are agents of change. We contribute significantly to the economic, cultural development, but also to the arts. Yet, despite these positive contributions and impacts, we are overlooked, suppressed, and even our contribution is appropriated by the dominant groups. While there is a growing recognition of communities discriminated on work and descent through several UN mechanisms, including universal periodic reviews, communication of special procedures, and periodic reviews of treaty bodies, this recognition remains fragmented. There's a lack of coherent approach, but it doesn't mean that we have sufficient global standards to protect our communities living under this condition. So our discussion today is crucial in the context of the Forum of Minority Issues, as we address the limitations of current UN mechanisms, but also the persistent gaps. We have a distinguished panel of experts with us today to lead this thematic discussion. But before I give the floor to our experts and introduce them, I just want to give the floor to Tatiana to share a bit about the exhibition we are seeing around. Please, Tatiana.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us and for this amazing opportunity to be here and also to present part of our work. My name is Tatiana Storoshko. I am a head of Roma Youth Organization for Internet and also a board member of the Roma Youth Coalition. And the exhibition we brought today together with us is called Memory Bridges, and this is part of our history, but this is also part of our modernity. As a basis for this exhibition, we took 5 stories of Roma genocide survivors and also 5 stories of young Roma from Ukraine who are affected now by the current war. And we tried to transform these stories into art to make it more visible and to make people easier to understand what our people are living and going through. And what was also very important for us to highlight not only this traumatic experience, not only the loss, but also to show the power of support, power of networks, connections, and also resilience in moments of stress and conflicts. So yes, and also you can see that this exhibition is painted on the palms, on hands of young people. So we wanted also to reclaim the space of our bodies, or our narratives, to counter also existing stereotypes about trauma. I think I will not take too much space. If you will have any questions, you can come up to us and we will guide you through the exhibitions, through the stories, because there are also our own stories of our friends and colleagues, which are very personal and important for us. And if you scan QR code, you can also find out more about the exhibition. We're really happy that we had a chance to show show these voices here on such high level. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, and thank you for your amazing work. Indeed, these pieces of art are impressive, and once again, it's just a way to show how we contribute to the memory, how do we kind of react or appreciate memory, and how young people are taking this forward. So let me introduce the panels today. Our first speaker is going to be Ms. Bina Palikal, the chairperson of the Asia Dalit Rights Forum, a prominent feminist figure in contemporary Dalit movement in South Asia, India specifically. Then we will have Mr. Sheikh Sidati, a rights expert with the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated and Work in Dissent. He's a member of the Haratin community from Mauritania. And then we are going to move to hear from Ms. Alba Hernandez, currently an OSCHR minority fellow, but also a member of the feminist collective of Romani gender experts from Spain. So without further ado, let us begin with this panel, and I would like to ask Ms. Bina Palikal if you could share with us an overview of the Dalit communities and share the key regional experiences as well as the human rights gaps that your community is facing, but also the contributions and the good practices that have emerged from Dalit-led efforts.
Thank you very much, Simona. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge a few leaders in the room. We have with us Corinne, who is an advisor to the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated and Work in Dissent. Nice to have you. We have Pirbu, who's a Dalit leader from Pakistan. It's great to have you. We have Ritwajit, who is a climate change expert and Dalit rights activist globally. It's really nice to have you. Asang, who is also from Australia and maybe a global citizen now, a Dalit rights, a Dalit rights activist globally. It's really nice to have all of you. Of course, the special rapporteur, we're really thankful that you could join us as well. And several other leaders from Africa. I may not know the names, but thank you for joining today. We are here. We come here almost, I don't know, for several years. Several organizations have been coming here for several years, and we were just reflecting on what is it that we want from the UN, or what is the gaps that we have back home. I don't want to so much focus on the gaps and challenges that we have back home, because there are several gaps and challenges. I think by now many of you know of the gaps and challenges that Dalits and communities discriminated on work and dissent face. For many, if someone is new here, just to explain what CDWD is, it is not a term that we would like to call ourselves, but it is a UN term. We want to be very clear. We're using the UN terminology. We still want to very clearly clarify that each discriminated community, whether it's Roma, whether it's Dalits, whether it's Haratin, Kilambola, Palenque, Burakumin, they all have distinct characteristics that we continue to reflect in our reports, if you look at our reports. Because we want to come, we all come with a common agenda at the UN, we band ourselves under the Global Forum of Communities, or we call ourselves Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, a term that is given by the UN. We believe that us, the discriminated people coming together, will create a stronger impact and can push forward our agenda, because we almost, the total population is about 270 million. Having said that, I think the challenges still remain in, if I speak from the region that I am in, South Asia region, we have a lot of gaps in implementation of policies. There are several policies. I come from India and we have excellent policies and legislations. Problem is that who is implementing and that there is no interest in implementing those policies. And I think it is really important for us that we look at why it is important that some of these policies that are far progressive policies that we have in the country than any other country. For example, we have what is known as targeted budgeting, budgets specifically for the development of Dalits and indigenous population within India. We have good policies in Nepal as well. We are now beginning to be recognized in Bangladesh. In Sri Lanka, the plantation workers also have some kind of recognition and policies. So across the board in Pakistan as well, there are some policies. Of course, we need more policies. We need to strengthen them. But is policy enough? Is that just a rhetoric, or we need to move beyond just having a policy? So one of the things that we are demanding is that, of course, state policies should be implemented, effective implementation. In Bangladesh, of course, we are looking for the implementation of the equality law, which is being discussed now, and we hope that, I think the same in UK, but I will not speak on the UK bit of it, that we have to move beyond that, because these policies are not really bringing people out of poverty. These policies are still having people, like, for example, just to say a case, I just narrated this case in an earlier meeting today, that a 9-year-old boy was killed for taking water out of his teacher's pot. Because he's an untouchable, he should not touch the pot of the teacher, and therefore they killed him. I mean, the teacher beat him to death. There are several cases that I can narrate. Women who are used as tools to settle scores, young children are made to sit at the back of the class. So these are some of the challenges, but here I'd not like to so much focus on challenges. We have a lot of reports that we can share that brings out this challenge. There's a climate crisis that is going on. The impact of climate crisis is most felt by the communities discriminated on work and descent, because many a times the Dalits in India are living at the farthest spots where there is a lot of garbage that is thrown, where they have the most impact of cyclones. They are near water bodies, they are near where the drainages are. So several times the impact of the climate crisis is most felt by these communities, but seldom acknowledged. But we are here because we want to move beyond just looking at challenges. We are here because we want to look at what the UN and the states can do for us. We would like the UN to look at how we can look at normative standards specifically to communities discriminated on work and descent. So not just maybe a declaration or charter on an international guideline should be adopted, so that we could initiate negotiations with the UN bodies and states, and to ensure that there is already the draft principles and guidelines which can be more utilized. We also have the UN Women Policy Brief that the UN Women has drafted. Maybe Simon, we do have some copies. So the UN Women has endorsed, and we could circulate that around. We also hope that the special procedures will mainstream the issues of CDWD. Only 11 of the 46 special procedures have addressed CDWD so far. 35 mandates still remain silent on the issues of Dalits and CDWD. So how can we ensure that all special mandate holders look at and address this? Just 2 more minutes and then. So how do we integrate the CDWD references into thematic reports on education, health, poverty, migrants, freedom of expression, torture? I'd like to really thank and appreciate the Special Rapporteur on Slavery, who has continuously referred to this issue in his reports, and we are very thankful for that, and we hope that he will continue to support us. We would like to institutionalize CDWD within the treaty body system. How is that not possible? At the end of the day, we believe that we come to this space because we believe that people, at the end of the day, the issues of people must be centered. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 people, but we're talking about 270 million people. I can go on with this. Finally, I'd like to say that just like several other communities have asked for certain declarations and resolutions at the UN, I would also like to say that we would like the UN to develop data standards for dissent-based discrimination and call either for a working group, a resolution, or declaration at the UN so that the member states can take this seriously and ensure that implementation of policies at the local level is much better managed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Palikal. I think it's very strong indeed. Your intervention is very strong, and I think it captures very well, the movement that we have created so far. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Sidati. And Mr. Sidati, you have dedicated yourself to the anti-slavery movement in Mauritania, but also across Africa. And with your support and with other activist support, the African Commission on Peoples and Human Rights has passed a resolution last year on this form of discrimination. So could you share how discrimination based on work and dissent manifests in the African context, but also what are the key challenges and what's the importance of this newly passed resolution for our communities there?
Thank you, Moderator Simona. I'm very glad to be here in order to talk about discrimination against CWD in Africa, especially Hierarchical in Mauritania. My name is Sheikh Sidati Hamadi, senior rights expert with the Global Forum and Inclusive Project, and a researcher on structural discrimination, analyst and essayist. The subject is very not simple because it's talking about all Africa, but I'm going today to focus on Mauritanian discrimination against Haratin, former slaves of Arabic community. Who are the communities discriminated on the basis on work and dissent in Africa? How the discrimination manifests, what the main challenges of the Haratin community are, and what African and national response exist. For centuries, African populations have been confined to subordinate positions due to slavery or hereditary occupation. These discriminations, grouped under CWD, still limit access to education, skilled employment, land, political participation, and economic opportunities. The ILO 2022 estimates 5,400,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa live in modern slavery. The heritage of Mauritania exemplifies these persistent inequalities. Who are the CWD and how this discrimination manifests? Groups affected by discrimination based on dissent and work. Two main categories are concerned: slave descendant and hereditary artisanal castes. Descendant of slavery. In Mali and Niger, group includes the Woloso, group from the Mandika, Bela, Iklan, and Buzu from the Tuareg community, and Rimaibe from the Fula community. Among Hausa and Zarma Songhai, the Bayu and Dabai Banda persist as marginalized groups. In Mauritania, the Haratin and dependent freedmen are the most visible. In Gambia, Komo descendants within the Soninke community face marriage restriction, exclusion from leadership, and social stigma. Artisanal and personal castes. Several groups historically assigned to crafts remain marginalized. Al-Muallimin, blacksmiths, and Igaun, griots and poets. In Mauritania Arabic community, Nyahamala among the Soninke, Nyenbe among the Fulani, and Nyenyo among the Wolof community. How this discrimination manifests? CWD face social stigma, endogamy, rules and exclusion from decision-making. Economically, they remain confined to low-status jobs and have limited land access. Politically, representation is low. Education and access to civil registration remain limited. The African Commission, Human Rights Commission considers this practice serious human rights violation. The main challenges of the Haratin community, representing 50% of Mauritanian population, 2 million. Haratin continue to experience slavery-like practice and structural inequalities. Economically, they dominate low-status jobs, sharecropping, manual labor, herding. Fewer than 10% own land, over 60% live in poverty, about 90,000 still live in situation assimilated to modern slavery, as Global Slavery Said Index. 18 lakh civil registration, reducing political participation. Educationally, only 40% complete primary school. Fewer than 30% of girls reach secondary school. Adult literacy is less than 55%. Health access is 35% lower than dominant group. Many live in marginalized or isolated areas. Judicially, fewer than 3% of slavery-related complaints reach courts. Activists face intimidation. Access to skilled employment is below 10% with widespread informal work and limited training. Territorial segregation reinforces exclusion. What are now the response of Africa and national response in order to fight against discrimination? African response. The African Commission Charter on 1981 prohibits discrimination based on origin. In the 1999 Declaration of the African Commission calls for the criminalization of slavery. Resolution 69 urged states to outlaw hereditary labor. The recent resolution 690 explicitly recognized CDWD and recommends criminalization, data collection, victim protection, and reparative policies. National response of Mauritania. Mauritania adopted several laws. Law 2007 criminalized slavery and trafficking. Law 2050-031 classifies slavery as a crime against humanity and creates special courts in Nema, Nouakchott, and Nouadhibou. The recent law 039/2024 established a specialized criminal court for slavery and trafficking. Negos such as esclave in Iraq, Mauritania, and anti-slavery international document cases and support victims despite risk. Recommendation. Firstly, to strengthen implementation of Law 039, apply the Resolution 690. Third, conduct a integrated census of Haratin and all CWD. 4, ensure inclusive education. 5, guarantee in universal civil registration, increase CWD representation in public institutions, expand land access and economic opportunities, promote awareness campaigns against stigma, ensure monitoring and evaluation of public policy, protect activists, and support abolitionist negos. In conclusion, we can say CWD in Africa and Haratin in Mauritania still face inequality rooted in slavery and caste systems, despite strong legal frameworks of the African Commission, Human Rights Commission, and Mauritanian laws. Implementation remain limited. Progress demands targeted policies, better protection of activists, improved access to education, civil registration, and representation to build a fairer society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sedati. Indeed, I think the numbers are striking, but despite the geographical distance, to say so, I can see many similarities with the Roma community that I belong to across Europe. So I think some of the challenges, and the data gaps are still persistent for our other communities as well. Thank you very much for your intervention. I think also the fact that despite the existence of constitutional provisions and legal frameworks, the implementation, the weak implementation and the inconsistent enforcement continue to lead to exclusion for our communities. Let me turn now to Ms. Hernandez. Alba, from your perspective as a feminist Romani expert, can you help us understand how many of the existent European level protections fail in practice, to say so, and how anti-Roma racism or anti-Gypsyism it's manifested across Europe when it comes to Roma communities? And also we would like to hear from you some recommendations on what can be done in Europe when it comes to Roma people.
Thank you so much, Simona. I will start saying that Roma is the minority, the bigger minority in Europe. We have been in Europe for more than 600-700 years, yet structural racism and systematic racism against Roma, it has its root on the colonial legacy of European countries. We have to look at this because we have the results of today. There is a strong dehumanization of the Roma community to the point that daily violence against Roma is normalized by the European society. When systems and structures are built on racism, patriarchy, and classism, we have the outcomes that we have nowadays. So Roma community are facing extreme poverty, denied access to basic rights, ethnic profiling, police brutality, Roma the scapegoat of the political campaigns, not very far away from what our colleagues were saying before. And I have to say that this is not happening only against Roma community, this is happening against any racialized community that is based in Europe, and it is important to build our work based on solidarity. As an example of that, we have to look at how the colleagues for the Global Forum are working, uniting different communities across the globe, working on the same problems. So the question is, how is possible that this is happening in Europe? No? Like one of the most progressive continents, very proud of very progressive laws on anti-discrimination, equality, and the reality is very far from that. And while listening to the colleague, I was really, seeing how our communities are facing similar, if not the same, struggles. So why that's happening? So the colleague said that it's a lack of interest. I would say that is because who has to implement the law, who has to reinforce the law are racist, are sexist, and they believe that Roma, among other communities, are undeserved of having the equal rights as white European people. So an example of how this is happening and how regressive laws are coming up in Europe, we just look at the new Slovakia law, Slovenia law, which is giving police the right to enter in Roma. So it's a law that is for security, and it will be enforced mostly in neighborhoods which are inhabited by Roma communities, and they are guaranteeing the police to enter in houses to check Roma without a guarantee from the court. This is a very regressive policy, and that puts in risk more our communities, which are already, over-policing. We can look at move to Hungary. Hungary also passed a law very recently that is called on identity, which prevent Roma communities from buying flats and houses in specific neighborhoods. So for them, it's to prevent the modification, let's say, of white neighborhoods, and so Roma and other racialized communities, they cannot buy flats on this. So we can see how these laws very well put it on papers, so that we cannot accuse them of being racist, because they are playing with the wording. Nevertheless, Roma activists and Roma human rights defenders, of course, they are suing them and making complaints at European Court of Human Rights, as European Human Rights Center is doing, because this is a violation against of all the human rights standards. So when it comes to the contributions, right, of the Roma community in Europe, even having all this oppressive system and structural discrimination that we are facing, Roma community have been contributing to the society in different spaces, for instance, a cultural domain, academia, knowledge producers, and politics, and also in the economy. The other day we were listening how in Pakistan many the lower caste classification people were taking all the jobs that white European they don't want to do, and that's a case of the Roma community as well. That comes with the racial capitalism, which perpetuates the system in which racialized communities are having access only to the low-paid jobs and maintaining the poverty that we are facing. So I think that we have to move a little bit to Roma women. That's my expertise. We have to look at how intersectionality is placing us. It's a core framework that we have to work on, because we cannot separate our gender identity from our racial identity. We don't, and they don't do it. Institutions, they don't separate us. They see us as a Roma women. They don't see us as a women. So that's why many of the laws and policies that are in place, they are not having an effect on us, because either they are for Roma or they are for women. So where we find ourselves here? So what I was saying before, all the discrimination and racism the Roma community is facing, we have to put on that patriarchy. Patriarchy is not belonging to the Roma community, as very white people are saying that Roma community is more patriarchal than others, which is, again, like a racist stereotype. We have to see how gender, racial violence, is operated in Roma women's life. So I will just give like a few examples of, cases. We have to look at North Macedonia, in which a baby was killed by a doctor due to obstetric violence while he was making racist comments. In Spain, I will take the opportunity that the colleagues from Spain are here, and I'm Spanish, so I have the courage to say so. 3 Roma girls were facing sexual violence, 3 different cases, and in the 3 cases, the judges, they gave less severely court sentences because the court were blaming the Roma culture. In Romania, Florica Moldovan, Roma women, was beaten by the bus driver while she was trying to enter in the bus, and the court decided that she was disturbing the public space, so she was fighting with the economic penalty. A minor in Greece was killed also by a metal door. People was passing by there, no one stopped to help her. And we have here our sisters from Ukraine, and I must say that when the war escalation started in Ukraine, Roma women who flee from Ukraine were facing racial discrimination in the bordering countries, Romania, Republic of Moldova, Slovenia, all of the countries, and they were placed in separate institutions, giving less rights than white Ukrainian women. So this is just few examples that we know, but many of the cases remain invisible because that's how the institution and the structural racism works, to keep our rights and to keep our cases of discrimination invisible, so we cannot make accountable the institutions. So how we can move forward and recommend, different countries and institutions to move forward defending and fulfilling the Roma community and particularly Roma women's rights. We have to demand that the legal protections and all the frameworks that are in place, very, very written, must be strengthening. And how we do that, making accountable the countries, and how we can do that, having monitoring process, monitoring and data that will allow us to see what are the grade of these violations. We must prosecute and we must demand that the countries and the institutions count with us to develop those policies, those laws, and to implement them. Roma women and Roma community, of course, must be not only in the decision making, but they must be while developing all the policies, all the laws. And for instance, in this case, I'm happy to say that Spain can be an example of it. Well, Roma women and Roma men also were part of it, but still we are lacking the implementation. We must demand absolutely access to legal, social and mental health services, and we must have spaces for community-led initiatives. As I said, I would like to maybe highlight again the disaggregated data, not just by race or ethnicity or nationality, but we have to have data disaggregated by gender as well. Otherwise, our problems, our issues will be, again, invisible. And just ensuring justice for Roma women is not a matter of policies, right? Because we are talking all the time, how many policies, which policies we need, law. It's not about that. It's transforming the very system that is keeping us in this very dehumanization position that we have. And we have to fight for our rights, our dignity, side of the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alba. And before we open the floor, I would like to kindly invite Ms. Rocio Arino Serrano, the Deputy Director for Equality of Treatment and Non-Discrimination at the Ministry of Equality in Spain, to take the floor.
Thank you, Simona, and thank you first of all for inviting us, for counting with us in this very important side event. I have heard actually with a lot of interest all the interventions and the experiences that you have shared with us today. And I would like to say, and as Alba knows it even better than me, of course, that in Spain we know this reality very well, and for many years we have been working to try to build a more equal, inclusive and respectful society, particularly in relation to Roma people, in which I will focus today, since it's the only minority that we recognize under the Framework Convention. This year, 2025, actually also holds a special meaning for Spain, since this is the year that we commemorate the 600th anniversary of the arrival of Roma to Spain in the Ministry of Equality. We organized a few weeks ago, I think it was just 3 weeks ago, an event where we honored the immense contribution of Roma communities to Spain's history and culture. We also put the spotlight on Roma women, and we are awarding several Roma women projects in view of the leadership of women, their resilience, and also their role in the cultural transmission, which has been essential. I don't want to take you, well, I take a lot of your time. I wanted just to walk you briefly through some of the initiatives that we have put in practice in Spain, since in Spain we are recognized, well, our policies towards Roma community have been recognized as best practices, but I will also, I will be sincere, I don't want to paint the situation in rosy colors. I will also give you later some data that show clearly that Roma in Spain still face a high level of discrimination. And as I said, it's not an ideal situation. Since the late 80s, we have been implemented the Roma Development Program, which includes initiatives in the area of employment, of education, community initiatives that are funded by the state together with the regions and the municipalities. We have also put in practice several national Roma strategies and the corresponding operational plans, setting priorities and goals. And I would also like to mention that we as Ministry of Equality, we are in the process of launching a new strategy on equal treatment and non-discrimination that will be adopted in 2026, that we will place anti-Gypsum in the core of the whole strategy, with also a strong intersectional approach, which is essential, as Alba, our colleague, Alba highlighted. And with the participation of Roma has also been in the center of our policies. We have had for the last 2 decades a Roma State Council directed at ensuring a meaningful and ongoing participation of Roma organizations in the different areas of public policy, such as employment, education, health, etc. We have also recently created an independent authority for equal treatment and non-discrimination that will also will be empowered to investigate discrimination cases, mediate, and even pursue legal action. We have also launched awareness-raising campaigns, and we provide assistance to victims of ethnic or racial discrimination through a specialized service. And I would also like to highlight some of the measures that we have put into practice to support Roma women. For instance, in the recent the renovation of the State Pact on Gender-Based Violence, now it is explicitly mentioned the need to implement target measures aimed at Roma women. And I would also like to highlight that we are in the process of setting up a new network of Roma women that will take its first steps in 2026. But as I said, the situation is far from being ideal. And for instance, a study carried out last year in 2024, which is called The Impact of Racism in Spain, it confirms that the Roma population, alongside in terms of data with the people of African descent, is the group that perceives the most discrimination in Spain. It is subject, as Alba said, for instance, of racial profiling by the police. And there is something that I think it is interesting to put it in this spotlight, because it is also the group with the lowest level of trust in reporting discrimination, which it's something that we really should take seriously in a state as Spain governed by the rule of law. I would like to conclude with a simple message that discrimination based on descent is not an inevitable legacy, and also with 4 commitments. Nothing about the Roma, and for Roma, of course, without the Roma community. The need to turn data into public policy, and also, of course, with funding evaluations and shared institutional responsibility and accountability. That naming, exposing, and combating anti-Gypsum has to be done without hesitation, because it is not an opinion. It is a violation of fundamental rights and a threat to democracy, and that we need a commitment with long-term policies aligned with international standards. And thank you so much.
thank you very much. And I also want to use the opportunity to thank the Spanish government for its strong commitment to our cause. And we are very grateful for Spain's engagement with our cause as the Global Forum, specifically to the director of the 2030 Agenda, who has joined us in New York for several events. So we really hope that we can find in Spain an ally to take this issue further at the UN. Thank you very much, and I would like to give the floor to Professor Tomoya Obokata, the UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery.
Great, well, thank you very much for inviting me this afternoon. It was by chance that I'm here this week, attending the, not the Minority Forum, but the Business and Human Rights Forum that's been happening since Monday. And so I didn't have a chance to prepare a speech or anything like that, but first and foremost of all, thank you for everything that you do, and representing the voice of the voiceless, across the globe. And I'm been touched and empowered by yourselves, and so please do continue the important work that you do. And as for my mandate, contemporary forms of slavery, of course, descent-based discrimination is the key cause of exploitation and abuse. And in my thematic reports, I always try to include the experiences of people, facing discrimination on the ground, and I'll continue to do so. Unfortunately, I'm almost finished my mandate, so I won't be producing any reports, but I will certainly make sure to hand over to the new mandate holder starting in May next year, make sure that he or she will be taking on important issues surrounding the communities discriminated on work and descent. We also had a chance to visit some countries like Mauritania and Sri Lanka, where I also addressed caste-based discrimination, and just came back from Brazil, where again Quilangula community and people of African descent constitute the majority, and yet they face discrimination and being exploited. So I will continue this mandate, will continue to raise a voice on your behalf, and I thank you for also your wonderful cooperation over the years, submitting information, raising concerns, and I'll do my best. This mandate will do our best to ensure that your voices are heard. And your point about the more special procedures like ourselves should do, I completely agree, and I'm very happy to work with my colleagues to do a joint statement, communication. I'm very happy to do so. So please keep, keep contacting us, and I'm very happy to work with other special procedure mandate holders. And treaty bodies, I don't deal with them, but I hope that they can also start building normative frameworks, and also through jurisprudence and general comments. And I will be meeting with the chair of the treaty bodies this week, so I'm very happy to raise some of the key issues. So let's work. I hope that we can work together, and we are not people that cannot be reached. On the contrary, we'll be very happy to be contacted. And just one last thing I wanted to say is that next year we celebrate a centenary of the Slavery Convention 1926, signed here in Geneva. I'm hoping to organize a series of awareness-raising events, and this is where I would like your support. All of this has to be survivor-led, led by the affected communities, and I certainly would like to have a brainstorming meeting or session at one point, and if you have any good ideas to raise your profile, and I would very much like to be part of that, so please keep that in mind. The Global Forum can organize some discussion. I'm very happy to take part. So thank you very much once again, and for everything that you do, and please do approach me and other mandate holders if there's anything that we can do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Indeed, we are going to be in touch with you, and I also want to encourage our civil society members, and I see many familiar faces from the movement, to contribute and to engage with special procedures. Thank you very much, and now I would like to give the floor to an academic, to Ms. Corinne Lennox. She has been supporting our cause as well, and we actually are in need of academic research and a deeper understanding of this form of discrimination. So, Dr. Lennox, please.
Thank you so much for the chance to take the floor, and it's exciting to see how this global movement has come together. I think it's such a deeply significant movement that has found resonance in similar forms of oppression, but also in combating that and coming together as civil society to challenge that at the highest level in the UN. I'm thinking back 25 years nearly to the Durban World Conference Against Racism, where we started to see these solidarities forming, particularly between Roma and Dalits who were there at that time. So to see this consolidate is really significant and important. On the question of does the UN need to do more in this area, clearly it does, and there has been small steps of progress over time, important allyship that's been built, for example, from treaty bodies, from the previous subcommission, and also from several special rapporteurs. But I think we can see that there is a number of intersection of different human rights violations across issues of labor, violence, segregation, gender, that demands a focused attention across all these different issues in a singular mechanism. And I think it's very helpful to have the delegate from Spain speak today and speak to national policies and law that they've been trying to implement, because it shows when you have focused attention, we gain a lot more information, there's opportunities for accountability and opportunities for dialogue. And it will be wonderful to have Spain's leadership in trying to see such mechanism be adopted within the UN. It's interesting, the Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery notes an important anniversary next year. I'd say the second important anniversary is the Durban World Conference, 25 plus 25. What an important moment that could be, the combination of those two anniversaries to signal that the UN will take further steps in this area. So I encourage all civil society and academics, and there are a few of us in the room who are interested in this issue, to support that effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fortunately, there's no event after us, so we still have time for a few questions. And my colleague Carla is going to hand some goodies to people who have questions, comments, or anything to say. So please, the floor is open. Introduce yourselves, and we can have a discussion. Please.
Το όνομά μου είναι Σουλεϊμάν Σαμπιχά. My name is Σουλεϊμάν Σαμπιχά. Εκπροσωπώ το Σύλλογο Ρωμά Γυναικών Δροσερού Ξάνθης. I represent the Women's Association of Roma from Xanthi. Πριν ανέφερε από την Ισπανία η κυρία, πώς λένε? Spain mentioned before. Για ένα παιδί που το έχουν... Η Άλμπα είπε για ένα μικρό κοριτσάκι που έχουν... She mentioned a girl, a Roma girl in Greece who was killed by the metal door. Δυστυχώς δεν είναι το πρώτο θύμα αυτό. Μετά από αυτό έγιναν άλλα πολλά. Περίπου 5-6 παιδιά σκοτώσαν οι αστυνομικοί και ποτέ δεν έγινε θέμα. Unfortunately, it wasn't the only such case. There were 5 or 6 more children after her killed by the police, and unfortunately nothing was done about it. Οι γονείς δεν έχουν βρει ποτέ δικαιοσύνη για αυτά τα παιδιά. The parents have not seen justice for their children. Παρόλο που τους εκπροσώπησε και δικηγόρος. Even though they had legal support. Τώρα εδώ και 9 μήνες σε όλους τους οικισμούς των Ρωμά στην Ελλάδα. For the last 9 months in all the Roma communities in Greece. Ο Υπουργός έχει δώσει εντολή, Υπουργός Προστασίας του Πολίτη. The Minister of Justice has given the order. Μας κλείσανε να μην βγούμε έξω εάν δεν μας ελέγχει η αστυνομία. To blockade all the communities with police surrounding them. Μας θεωρούν εγκληματίες. They think we are all criminals. Είμαστε έμποροι ναρκωτικών. Drug dealers. Ό,τι άλλο μπορείτε να σκεφτείτε. Anything else you can imagine. Πώς σκέφτονται κάποιοι κακοί λευκοί. the way, anything else bad that they can think of.
Από το ελληνικό κράτος δυστυχώς δεν έχουμε καμία προστασία.
There's no support from the Greek state.
Όχι ότι φοβάμαι.
Not that I am afraid.
Προσωπικά δεν έκανα παιδιά να μπορώ να βοηθάω τα παιδιά Ρωμά γιατί είμαι Ρωμά.
Personally, I didn't have children so that I can help other Roma children.
Πρόσφατα πήγα στο ΑΣΕ στην Πολωνία.
Recently, I went
για τις μειονότητες.
to the OSCE forum in Poland about minority issues.
Απειλήθηκα από το ελληνικό κράτος για να μην πάω στο ΑΣΕ, να μην πω τα προβλήματά μας.
I was told by the Greek state not to go, so that I wouldn't talk about these problems.
Και τώρα εδώ που είμαι είναι πολύ δύσκολο ήταν για μένα να φτάσω, αλλά
It was
είμαι
very
εδώ,
difficult.
έκανα το σωστό, είμαι εγγραμμένη κάτω στο ΙΕ για να πω τα προβλήματά μας και δεν μας δέχτηκαν να μιλήσουμε.
It was hard for me to come here, and yesterday we weren't allowed to speak either. We were in the group that...
Τα στοιχεία μου θα τα αφήσω εδώ στο συνέδριο. Είμαι έτοιμη, αν θα γίνει κάτι για τους Ρωμά σε όλη την Ευρώπη, εκτός χώρας της Ευρώπης, είμαι έτοιμη να δίνω εκθέσεις για να λύσουμε προβλήματα των Τσιγκάνων.
I'm open to any contact with other Roma groups in Europe so that we can work together to solve these issues.
Σας ευχαριστώ και συγγνώμη για το χρόνο που
Thanks a lot and sorry for the time.
We thank you very much for the intervention. Indeed, we see a lot of attacks and reprisals on our activists, and I think this shows that our cause matters, and we see it in all the groups, not only in the Roma groups. So I think there is a need to act, just because we disturb the decision makers. But I think we can act together and become stronger, and I think this is why we need this type of network. So thank you very much for the intervention. If we have any other questions, yeah. Yes, please be brief so we can conclude.
Thank you very much. I was in another session, but my intention was to be here much earlier. I am the commissioner who sponsored the resolution that we have been talking about. It was not easy. It took three times attempts to get that resolution. And I hope we make good use of it.
Thank you.
At some point I had to do capacity building rather, of the commissioners to understand what the issue was all about. So I was just coming in solidarity actually, and to say that I'll be going on a mission to Niger next week, and one of our objectives is to make sure this issue is put in the limelight that it needs to be. So thank you very much for the floor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We really appreciate your work and your efforts. And I think that resolution is a milestone for our work. And wherever we go, regardless of the community we come from, we mention this as a good practice. And I think the African Commission should be applauded for this effort, and we encourage other regions to take such efforts on board. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to thank all the panelists and the speakers. We are running 10 minutes beyond the allocated time. We thank you very much once again, and we hope to keep in touch with us. And let's conclude with a salute. We have Opre Roma.
Opre Roma.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
Salve.
Salve.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Lentai.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Did you get this? Carla, I can give him one. He has one.
More than he will.
Yeah. You can give to his girlfriend. Hey, let's meet the commissioner. We go to Africa